you have a short question, you can ask it and I will relay it, or if you have a longer question or statement, please come up to the microphone. So, let's proceed. Let me find my notes. So one of the questions that is on a lot of people's minds that I've heard asked a lot is what we know about due dates for proposals, like Rose's proposals, like discovery proposals. Do you have any insight into that?
Stay tuned. We are reassessing due dates. Things will be slipped from the regular dates, at least things that were due here for the next couple of months. We fully intend to give the minimum of 60 days from announcement to due dates. So there will be notices coming out as to when the new due dates are, at least for those that were due in the March through April, May timeframe, probably.
Is there an intent to have a statement of here are all the new due dates, or will they be coming out kind of program by program? Do you know?
I don't really know. You know, certainly the discovery stuff will come out separately because it's not under RNA, but all the RNA solicitations that come out of part of Rose's may come out in a one announcement. You just have to stay tuned.
Did you ask him about Rose's 2019 also?
What about Rose's 2019? Any word on when that might come out?
Don't have a date specifically. It probably won't be delayed that much. Pretty much the document is put together before Christmas, so it's just a matter of what had to occur for release of it in January that hasn't gotten done yet. So it may be delayed by a little bit, but I wouldn't expect it to be all that much.
All right. Other questions? I have my, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to ask about the ground-based facilities that were impacted by the shutdown and how they're faring.
The question was about ground-based facilities that were affected by the shutdown and how they are faring. I presume that is like IRTF in particular?
We did our best to make sure that all of our facilities were funded at least through the end of January before Christmas, because we anticipated there might be a shutdown at least for a short period of time. We did not expect it to be all of January. There were no facilities that I'm aware of that weren't able to conduct their normal operations. A few of them were on pins and needles about whether we'd get back in time to get additional funding to them, but most of them had funding that could take them through into February anyway. And Kelly has been scrambling since she got back to get additional funds out to any of those that were running on fumes.
Okay. Other questions, in particular shutdown-related questions?
Follow up, and what are the plans for distributing funds, or what plans are being thought to be proactive in case there's a future shutdown?
Yeah, so what are there plans also being made to distribute funds proactively in case we shut down again in 2.5 weeks or whenever the deadline is?
Well, we always try to be proactive. Yeah, we are getting funds out to everybody that should carry them well into March, if not April. So I would have to say that if there is any project out there that feels they aren't in that position, that they've got sufficient funding to get them into April, they should let us know. But in our look at the funding status for all the projects, they should be in good shape. Even if we shut down here in another 2 weeks, have sufficient funds to carry them on for another month or so.
All right.
If a program was granted an exception during the first shutdown, does that mean they would get an exception during another shutdown, or would they have to reacquire that?
So the question was programs that were.
I heard it, Tim.
Exception during the, okay.
Yeah, it's coming through fine.
Okay.
It should be, everything should be carried over. Everything that was accepted, last shutdown should carry over into the next one. There could be exceptions to exceptions, I suppose, but some, now that they have the list, I think the intent is certainly that they would all be carried into another shutdown.
And how about on getting money out to contractors and so on that were running low on funds during the last one and had, like LPI, that had to furlough people and that sort of thing? Yeah,
well, again, we're working to get funds out to all that we can. LPI in particular, I know a slug of funds went out to them yesterday, I believe it is, and they should be back up and running by the end of the week. So, again, the situations that we know about, we are getting funds distributed.
All right.
Well, maybe the answer is the same, but I'm wondering about grants that have been awarded but have not started funding yet. If those are going to be delayed appreciably at the start of the award period, or if they'll kind of start as they would have been announced.
Could you hear that one?
Well, it's kind of faded out. You might want to repeat that one.
Okay, so the question was grants that have been awarded but not funded. What are the prospects for getting the money out to them? Is that going to be delayed appreciably?
Well, it probably varies by program and exactly what the situation is, the funding is in programs. And in our particular case, well, we actually, for NEO observations program and planetary astronomy, we have not made, we've determined those that are selectable, but we haven't actually made awards yet. We will probably hold off until we have at least more of a budget before we make those awards. So for NEO observations and planetary astronomy, I would not expect to see your awards go out till after we get a full budget.
So in other words, not until something has passed, or February 15th and shutdown number 2, right?
Well, as I say, a full FY19 budget, or Congress, pulls one and puts us on a full year CR, which they could do.
All right. Other questions? Well, related to that, one question I've heard was is the financial situation for Neocam, and does the shutdown, has that affected that? Okay, well, budget for the Planetary Defense Program. As some of you know, FY19 is kind of we call it a watershed year for the Planetary Defense Program, in that in the President's proposed budget for FY19, it was the start of a separate line for planetary defense, and $150 million was requested in that budget line to incorporate the existing near-Earth object observations program, plus the double asteroid redirection test, DART, plus whatever else we could do with that $150 million, so to speak. Under that program, we could do, keep our legacy ground-based systems going.
and an extension of NEOWISE, and the great increase in budget for DART, and have a little bit of money left over, which our decision was to initiate a instrument development project for Neocam to keep the effort going and keep the instrument development viable for a future decision for a full mission once budget was made available. Because the FY19 budget has not been passed, that is all in a hang fire right now, awaiting a decision from Congress of what they're going to do with the FY19 budget. So, although if they do get a budget passed, things look good for us. It's in the bills. What I talked about, the $150 million budget for planetary defense, is in the bills that we see on the Hill, but they have not been passed yet. In fact, $150 million plus a little more. Both the House and the Senate have added a little bit of money to that. So we will have to wait and see, frankly.
All right. Other questions?
There is a question about the impact of Mars 2022 overrun.
Okay, question about Mars 2020 seems to be running over, and what impact is that going to have on the rest of Planetary Science Division or SMD? Do you have any insight into that?
Well, not really. First of all, I don't think we know exactly what the overrun is for Mars 2020. And then, there's a process to be followed when there is a project overrun. First of all, the project has to get really scrubbed to determine how much of it they can figure out how to take by reprogramming the project, and to determine, if there really is an overrun and how much it is. And then the Mars program has to look at how they can reallocate things to absorb the overrun. So, there's, as long as the process is followed, there are 3 or 4 steps that have to be taken before it starts to impact other programs and the planetary science, overall planetary science division budget. I'm certainly not saying that there couldn't be an impact to other programs, but we're not at the point yet to know what that, if there is, and what it might be.
Okay.
It's certainly true that when Curiosity overran back 5-6 years ago, it was a hit across planetary sciences because we couldn't absorb it within the Mars program. But that was also a time when the planetary science division budget was at a low point because of budgets that had been submitted by the previous administration. Wait and see. That's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I'd add to that is, be cognizant that there is a process that should be followed to absorb these hits. Sometimes higher levels can reach down and say, just go do this. But how to hold the feet to the fire to make sure the process is followed to make sure that it's handled fairly.
Right, and to minimize collateral damage.
Right.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Next, yes.
I had another one about DART. So I really like the idea that DART was Class B and it became Class C. That's what the big change. But what is the financial impact of the change? What is the implication for the JPA?
Okay.
I know it's Julie, but I couldn't make it out.
Okay. The question was, so DART has moved from Class B to Class C, which, there's some benefits to that, but are there financial implications of moving to Class C? Will that cause budgetary problems?
Well, there are certainly budget implications of doing that. Anytime that you increase or decrease your risk posture, whichever way you look at it. In other words, the agency wants to be more assured that we've got things adequately covered in case there are any issues that come up with a project. It requires more FUE, we call it unallocated budget, to be placed against the project to ensure that we have adequate funding available for the project. And now, in this case, when DART is part of what I'll call a budget cap program at $150 million, the more that it takes to do DART and funding that has to be allocated to DART, the less you have available to do other things. So, so there is a indirect impact to DART moving from Class D to Class C. It required us to add UFE to the budget of DART, and therefore that money can't be used to do other things.
Right. And I think we have some questions from online. Let's see. Okay, so this is with regard to Rob Zedeki's mini-moon project being cut off when anything looks like it's geocentric. MPC drops geocentric objects, and we've been told to stop observing anything as soon as it looks geocentric. This is from Melissa Brooker at Space Watch. Does that question make sense to you?
Well, I know what they're talking about anyway. There will be better guidance coming out to the sites on this. In their attempts to find more and more objects that are coming close to the Earth, natural objects that are coming close to the Earth, we do pick up a lot of artificial objects, satellites and debris that is orbiting the Earth. And if they are in high enough Earth orbits, what we call multi-day orbits, there can be some ambiguity until you get enough observations as to whether this is a object that is in either a centric orbit, and therefore probably a natural object, versus a man-made object, artificial object that is in a high Earth orbit. So we have to take enough observations to be able to sort that out, and it takes a day or two sometimes to do that. We do need to get those observations to make that determination, so they're not cut off until we know which it is. But once a object has been determined to be an artificial object, artificial satellite in Earth orbit, our responsibilities and, quite frankly, our authority to be tracking that object end. And and that determination is determined by the Minor Planet Center. Minor Planet Center has the responsibility to sort this out. So sites should send in their observations to the Minor Planet Center. until the Minor Planet Center makes a determination, and then at that point, if it is an artificial satellite, those work on that object needs to be dropped.
Okay.
And there's a follow-up that Bob is concerned that an object could be geocentric and natural.
And the follow-up question is, what happens, could there be an object that is essentially geocentric but natural? And where does that get classified? It sounded like the classification was really just based on orbit, which could place a natural object out of bounds.
Well, any natural object that's going to be in a geocentric orbit, hypothetically, I don't think we have a few cases of temporary orbits, but those are well out. It's pretty easy to determine whether it could be a natural object that is in a temporary geocentric orbit versus an artificial object. We don't tend to put any spacecraft out into those distant geocentric orbits. So that can be sorted out. I don't think there is as much reason for concern here as some might think. MPC is able to sort that out.
All right. Other questions? One other question that came up, we had a presentation about a ESA mission finalist, and a question came up about collaborating with European missions. I suppose the same thing would be true of Japanese, and whether if you're wanting to propose an instrument, you can't get any commitment from NASA, but the proposal at ESA might be judged against whether there is a commitment. So there was a concern, is there a way to break through that sort of chicken and egg sort of situation? Does that question make sense?
Well, I think I understand what they're getting at. First of all, you're still in proposal status, and there are no guarantees in proposal status. But we historically have been very good about supporting participation by American teams on international missions. So I certainly wouldn't allow this to cause you to not be a part of a proposal effort. The first step is, if you want to be part of a international mission proposal, you should do that. And you can't, if you don't become part of the proposal, you won't be part of a mission that gets selected. If the mission looks like it is viable and could win in the international selection effort, then we can talk about things like our commitments and those kinds of things. But there are no guarantees. It's a proposal. You're still in a proposal phase, and there are no guarantees in proposal phases.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Other questions online? Anything else you wanted to say, Lindley?
Well, despite everything that's going on back here in DC, I think our community is in pretty good shape. I think things are moving along very well, even during the shutdown, all of the great news coming across about OSIRIS-REx and New Horizons flyby of KBO and those kinds of things was great news that was coming out, and was frankly featured by the administrator in some of his remarks about during and about the shutdown. So I think things with the small bodies community are looking very good these days, and we should not be discouraged by any of this that's going on right now. That being said, we always need to continue to look forward to the future and do a good job of justifying why we want to do the things we need to do. That's part of what's going on with the National Academy study on NEO infrared observations is better justification for the powers that be that, this really is a good approach to the NEO catalog, filling out the NEO catalog. So I think the community should be very positive on what has been done and is currently transpiring, and be positive about the future. If what we see in the planetary science budget for 19 does come to pass, we are being very well supported. So I think we're in pretty good shape as long as the budget gets passed. So we need to be vigilant about making sure our representatives are doing their job. Let's see, I think there was a question somewhere I heard about support to occultations. I don't know if you wanted to frame that one or not.
Well, we've had some discussion about that. If you would like to say something about that, sure.
Well, I think the first step in anything like that is propose. We need to see a proposal.
Okay. Another question.
Which program should they propose to?
Which program should occultation studies be proposed to?
Well, if it's to take observations, planetary astronomy is a good program to propose to. Under SSO, under Solar System Observations, Planetary Astronomy.
Yeah.
Well, typically, from the experience of New Horizons, the occultation campaigns are substantially more than planetary astronomy traditionally funds.
So good to hear the comments or questions.
Well, I think I heard most of it. In New Horizons, though, you were doing work in support of a mission, so the funding should have come from the mission.
No. The question was if you're doing something that is not mission related, that the budgets for some of these occultation studies are higher than what could typically be funded by planetary astronomy.
Proposals are evaluated on merit, and if you can justify the funding that is needed and the scientific merit is excellent, then it'll get funded.
And there's two comments online. Mark Bowie explained in his presentation on this that there was not sufficient time, and that the Gaia catalog will not provide the resources later that it can now.
Yeah, well, so maybe the situation has changed from previous attempts, and you have a better basis for a proposal now.
Yeah. Okay, other questions?
A question about the Planetary Defense Conference and some of the highlights that, you know, it's going to be in the DC area, so obviously this is an opportunity to get with congressional and governmental attention. So just wanted to know if Lindley could speak to that.
Okay, could you hear that?
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, we are certainly advertising to everyone that we can, and you should too, that the Planetary Defense Conference will be last day or so of April and first few days of May 2019 here in D.C. area at the hotel across from the University of Maryland. We are certainly hoping that some of the both folks from across the agencies headquarters here in DC that we work with in our NEO preparedness strategy and action plan will take benefit of the experts from around the world in planetary defense being here for this conference and try to attend some of it. We are working to get talks from some of those areas. Administrator Bridenstine has tentatively accepted to give the keynote. We believe we'll also have a talk by some of the higher management in FEMA. I think it will be a very good conference. We certainly hope one of the best planetary defense conferences that we've had. Not to mention trying to do a very realistic tabletop exercise for asteroid impact scenario.
You're getting thumbs up and smiles here. So, yeah.
Hey, Lindley, it's Rick Binzel. Just, you probably know, but there will be an Apophis special session talking about possible missions there. So sort of as a very forward thinking towards planetary defense and the importance of the planetary defense mission line. So you're probably aware, but just to make you aware if you weren't.
No, I was aware. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Yeah.
So as we get closer to LSST, the planetary astronomy community is thinking about all the tools and things they need to develop. The community is probably not looking for additional funds, but is there, when we have any thoughts about ways the current proposal calls or systems can be used to help support that, whether that's language in certain calls or just thoughts about generally, not increasing budget, but how the normal calls we have now in roses can be used to support those efforts.
That kind of faded in and out, Tim. You might want to try to summarize that one for me.
So the question was, with things like LSST coming online, have you been considering ways that work toward that could be funded not by increasing the budget, but by making existing programs eligible, or making that eligible for existing programs?
Not for the community, not projects.
Yeah, making that eligible for proposals by the community. As an example, I think somebody said PDART. If somebody wants to develop a tool within PDART to make some data from, say, LSST useful to the small bodies community, can that be done?
Yeah, I know of nothing that would prohibit somebody proposing to PDART or one of the other programs, depending on what they're doing. The first step is proposals. I know people are concerned about, are we proposing to the right program or not? I think you need to be a little bit more, let me use the word aggressive, put a proposal together and send it to the program you think it ought to be. if we have different thoughts about that, or help get it, to the right program, or advise you how it could be better handled. There's certainly nothing that prohibits proposals coming in for either better ways to use LSST data, or to, once the data starts coming in, making use of that data for planetary science purposes.
Okay.
I doubt that we will set up a special program just for LSST, if that's what you're getting at. But our existing programs, I think, will all be open to proposals that involve LSST.
I think it was the second that was being suggested, right? All right, and I have another question.
Will this program get more money?
Well, and the question was, would there be a way that as these, and it's not, it's LSST now, there are others that might be coming online soon. Is there a way that there would be more money going into the sorts of programs that could analyze those?
Well, that's really a question I can't answer. We, as best we can, evolve our programs to make the best benefit out of what is being done in the community. So I think saying a priori that something is going to be budget is going to be increased, or we're going to make this a priority before it exists is speculation at best.
Okay. And another from online?
Has anyone from the National Space Council been invited to the PDC?
Yes. Not specific. We haven't targeted specific individuals, but that information that there will be a planetary defense conference here in DC has been conveyed up to the National Space Council.
Okay. Other questions? All right. Well, Lindley, I think on behalf of everybody involved in the community, I'd like to thank you for both for your efforts over the years to build up this, the budget for this community, and your efforts, coming in today and answering the questions that you can. I know that it's as chaotic there as it is lots of other places. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you guys. I feel like I just gave a goodbye speech or something, but, but that's not true. Don't start that rumor.
No. We fully expect to see you in Maryland in June, and we'll harass you in person.